Doom scrolling, FOMO, likes and follows. These are things that keep teens focused on their phones.
Social media just consumed him. He was on his phone 20 hours a day.
Their son took his own life due to what they claim was a social media addiction. And when they made the tragic discovery, his phone was still in his hand.
There will be days where I can't even get out of bed.
Teens get candid about their struggles with anxiety, a real eye-opening conversation. Doom scrolling, FOMO, likes and follows. These are things that keep teens and early 20-somethings focused on their phones. In fact, nearly 40% of young Americans aged 18 to 22 are reportedly addicted to social media, leaving many feeling targeted and trapped. California just joined New York in passing a state law aimed at safeguarding children when it comes to social media access. Why? Well, a recent study from San Diego State University shows that 7 out of 10 teens who spend over 5 hours a day on social media are more likely to struggle with suicidal ideation. So tonight, several teens get candid about what drives their anxiety, depression, and potentially even darker thoughts. But first, 2 parents who say their son's obsession with his phone and social media caused him to do the unthinkable. And when they made the tragic discovery, his phone was still in his hand.
CJ first got a smartphone when he was about 15 years old. He loved it. Social media just consumed him. The last 3 months, he was on his phone 20 hours a day.
CJ had his phone with him all the time.
He never went anywhere without it. He wouldn't eat dinner without it. If you told him to take out the garbage, he still got his phone with the garbage. When Chris took away CJ's phone,
A switch flipped. CJ became extremely angry.
it was like a bomb went off in the house. He was throwing things. I mean, just boom, he just flipped. I thought, oh my God, this is not CJ, but it was for social media.
By the time he was a senior, he had quit sports or anything like that. He was all about his phone.
One of the biggest shockers that I had was finding out that CJ was not sleeping. He was posting 20 hours a day. It was January 4th. CJ was 17 years old. It was 10 o'clock in the morning when Chris woke him up. There was no signs that CJ was depressed or suicidal.
He stood up and he went to the bathroom, and that was the last time I ever saw him. So she went in and checked on him. The door was locked. She was able to get in the door, and there he was on the floor.
I ran right into the room and I saw the blood, and he had taken the gun from his closet and shot himself. CJ's cell phone was still in his hand. He had his thumb still on the screen.
I do believe that social media had a big part in taking my son's life.
Well, I'm glad to meet both of you. I'm sorry for the
Same
subject
here.
matter.
Yeah.
Wish we were talking about something else.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
When this happened, you had no idea how much he was sucked into this rabbit hole.
No, well, we saw him with his phone all the
Right.
time, but we had no idea that he wasn't sleeping at night. He wasn't doing anything but being on that phone. And if you, a 17-year-old boy, you expect him. He's going to be in his room. He's going to be playing video games. But to know that he stopped playing video games to be posting online, it's a scary thing. And we didn't know that that's actually what happened to him. Everybody was looking at us saying, why? He was such a great kid. Everybody loved him. Everybody thought, that's somebody that's going to be important someday because he was so smart. He got 3 points away from a perfect score in his SATs. The kid was just on it. He was athletic, he was everything. And then all of a sudden, once he got onto the internet, that was it. He just couldn't get off. He couldn't put it down. He was so addicted to this. I couldn't believe it. Someone that smart would take his own life. When he died, he couldn't die without posting. He had to post who turned out the lights. He had to post Godspeed. He had to post, if there is a God, he's going to have to ask me for forgiveness. That right there, I mean, I saw the post that said, who turned out the lights? But I thought it was some kind of song lyrics or something. I didn't think that it was literally the lights being taken away.
This came out of the blue for you as well. I mean, you didn't see any sign of this coming.
I thought he was 17. He just wanted to kind of be with, because he spent pretty much his childhood and everything else with me. So I thought it was just kind of a normal thing. He wanted to kind of go with his friends and do things. But no, I had no idea. That's what the shocker was for me.
I talked about this in We've Got Issues. This is an epidemic. I say it's an intentional epidemic because this is known.
Yes.
People know what's going on.
Yes.
But if you look at the excerpts that a lot of the lawsuits have talked about here in just their internal documents, these are meta. The young ones are the best ones. You want to bring people to your service young and early. Sean Parker, the former president of November 17 conference, Meta employs these psychological tactics in order to make its platform addictive and to exploit a vulnerability in human psychology. So they're saying here that the vulnerability has been identified, the addictive nature of the click and the likes or not likes. In psychology, we know there are different schedules of reinforcement that have different power. The hardest one to extinguish and the most powerful to shape behavior is the variable intermittent ratio schedule. That's what slot machines are based on in Vegas. If you do a behavior and it pays you off every time, then that behavior will go up really rapidly. But when it stops paying off, it goes away real quick.
Yes.
But if you have one that's intermittent and it's variable, like you do it 10 times and you get paid off, then you do it 7 times, you get paid off, you do it 17 times before you get paid off, people keep searching. They don't know when I'm going to get paid off. And that's the way it is with likes. You put up something and people like it. Then you go, oh, that's great. Then you put up another one. Oh, they didn't like it. Well, I'll put up something else. Well, a whole bunch of people like it. Well, I'll put up something else. Well, they didn't like this one. So I got to hurry and put up something else to get more likes. And it's intermittent. It's variable. You don't know what the payoff is going to be. So they keep searching and searching and searching, trying to get the payoff. And when they do, you get this dopamine rush. And then, so you go again and again and again. Right. I mean, it's well documented. It's been researched, I mean, for hundreds of years.
Right.
And once you get on that schedule, it's hard to extinguish. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. So, Dr. Phil, I think with what you're describing right now, describes my son to the T, because he grew up feeling like he should help if he can. If you have the skills, you got gloves on, you got shoes, you got boots, let's go out and get to work. And then high school year, he was living for everybody else.
Yeah.
He lost his confidence. I did see him lose his confidence.
That's the erosion. I'm telling you, there's this addiction where they give their power away and let other people and how folks respond start telling them what their worth is.
Right.
And that's the reason that you see spikes in anxiety and depression and then loneliness. I mean, young people today have, on average, less than one true friend because they're so tied up in all of this.
And one thing I say to Dr. Phil is when we were younger, we wanted to see our friends.
Right.
We saw their faces.
Right.
My brother died when I was in high school. My friends didn't know what to say to me, but they were there with me.
Yeah.
Physically with me. Now you can hide behind a phone.
And you learn that skill. You learn to be there with somebody.
Yes.
You learn to share with somebody. You learn to,
that's right,
to do something with someone. And that's a lost art now because everything is so virtual.
He wasn't sleeping at night. And he couldn't understand what was going on with his body. His legs hurt. His body wasn't working the way it should. You need sleep in order to get...
So that was hindsight for us, though, Dr. Phil. He was working his butt off, and I just thought, he's doing it. He's the man.
Yeah.
He's the man. He's got college courses. He's got Duke wanting him into college. He's working all the hours he can at a steak joint through Christmas. And then the day he's supposed to go back to school, the day before, he takes his own life.
Yeah.
That was it. He's done.
And that's so unfair because you can't see what's happening. All right, next, Donna and Chris say they are fighting back against the very social media platforms they feel are responsible for their son's tragic death. And we're going to talk about that after the break. Money lessons can be hard-earned, especially when it comes to making the most of finances. Keeping all savings in one place may seem smart, but it doesn't allow money to grow effectively. Well, today's episode sponsor, Acorns, is here to help. Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. It only takes 5 minutes to set up an account. So take that first small, simple step to getting your money back on track. Sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/Dr. Phil or download the Acorns app to get started right now.
Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/Dr. Phil.
Poor sleep impacts productivity, focus, and energy, making it difficult to tackle daily tasks effectively. Tossing and turning through the night leaves many feeling drained and unmotivated. Beam's Dream Powder offers a solution. This science-backed healthy nighttime blend is clinically shown to improve sleep, helping users fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up refreshed without grogginess. Dream combines powerful all-natural ingredients like reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin, creating a blend designed for consistent, restful nights. It has become an essential part of nightly routines for those seeking better sleep. The ultimate sleep refresh for the new year. Try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off.
CJ was one of those kids that every parent wants. He was very outgoing.
He was a dad's boy. He wanted to be with me. That's exactly what I wanted. Well, he was a good kid.
No amount of money is ever going to bring our child home.
Schools, states, and families from across the country have filed lawsuits against the social media parent companies they claim have designed a product to be deliberately addictive and fuel a youth mental health crisis. Now, parents Donna and Chris say they have filed a wrongful death lawsuit after their son took his own life due to what they claim was a social media addiction. Now, joining us virtually is Donna and Chris's attorney, Matthew Bergman. Now, Matthew is the founding attorney for the Social Media Victims Law Center, which has a mission to hold social media companies legally accountable for the harm he claims they inflict on vulnerable users. This is one lawyer that certainly knows how I feel about this, for sure. Matt, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Dr. Phil. Thank you for your emphasis on this issue.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for representing so many people that have been, in my opinion, certainly victimized by this. What's the challenge that you face in bringing these cases to trial?
Well, the challenge is we're up against the biggest and most wealthy companies in the world who will stop at nothing to keep addicting our kids. When kids are on social media, they're not the customer, they're the product. And so the companies utilize every legal artifice they can to avoid responsibility. And all we want is for social media companies to follow the same rules that all other companies do, that all people do. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. But they hide behind immunity and avoid responsibility for these very foreseeable consequences, such as that was inflicted on CJ.
These lawsuits against social media companies give parents a voice, at least nothing's going to bring back their loved one, but at least it gives them a voice to seek some measure of justice where at least they use the life that's been lost and can help so many others that are facing the same sort of risk.
Well, in 30 years of practice, I've never been so honored as to represent families such as Donna and Chris. It's not about the money, it's about accountability. And what they say is, and they know this is a tough fight, but they say, if we save one life through this effort, it's all been worth it.
We have a statement from Meta. We want to reassure every parent that we have their interest at heart in the work we're doing to help provide teens with safe experiences online. We've developed more than 30 tools and features to do this, including ways for parents to set time limits for their teens on our apps, age verification technology, automatically restricting teens under 16 from receiving direct messages from people they don't follow, and sending notifications encouraging teens to take regular breaks. These are complex issues, but we will continue working with experts and listening to parents to develop new tools, features, and policies that are effective and meet the needs of teens and their families. Is it enough?
Well, it's baby steps, but it's steps in the right direction. All of those steps took place after Donna and Chris filed their lawsuit, but it's not enough. The Meta's own documents say that tweens are herd animals. Yeah, they refer to children as animals. They use the word addictive. That's not something that you thought up, Dr. Phil. That's in their own documents. They say teens have an addict's narrative. And until they turn off their algorithms and show kids what they want to see, not what they can't look away from, these baby steps are not going to solve the mental health crisis and epidemic that our young people are experiencing. Until it is more expensive for Meta to design dangerous products and safe products, they're going to need to put their profits over the safety of our kids.
And that's a problem. And, you know, I would think that if we pull the curtain back enough, and I would think when children see that they are being manipulated, when they are being fed part of a story, when what they're getting has been curated and fed through a filter, rather than them getting to choose what they see and what they don't see, you would think there would be a groundswell of rebellion among the users for these teenagers. But you know how much jury work I've done, and I've always said juries decide on what they see and hear, not on what they don't see and hear. And if people are getting fed half of a story, or they're getting fed just certain pieces of information and nothing else, that's what they're going to react to. They need to be able to see what they want to see.
Well, and they need to be able to see what is out there and not what the companies are hiding. For years and years, until Frances Haugen stood up in front of Congress, parents had no idea whatsoever what their children were being subjected to. And now, thanks to the work that you're doing, thanks to the work that the media is doing, thanks to the bipartisan efforts in Congress, we are seeing, I think, an awakening among parents and an awakening among the country, and saying enough is enough. So it is very daunting, but when I think where we were 2 years ago and where we are today, I have some hope that CJ may be one of the last children that has to die before these companies take responsibility for putting their profits over the safety of our kids.
I certainly hope so. And thank you for your work, and please keep it up. And in any way we can help and keep this out in front of the public, just know we're here, and this platform is available anytime we need to get more information out there. So thank you too for coming. And Matthew, thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Phil.
Hopefully the fight Donna and Chris are waging against these social media companies will keep other parents from suffering a similar loss. When we come back, teens get candid about their struggles with anxiety. A real eye-opening conversation next. A shocking 90% of all Gen Z mental health diagnoses are for anxiety, with over half of those diagnosed saying their anxiousness hit an all-time high this past year. And tonight you will learn what is helping fuel a Gen Z anxiety epidemic. And it is an epidemic. Sevi is only 15 years old and says her anxiety about her future can at times just be too hard to bear. Take a look.
My anxiety started when I was 3 years old. I was having these colossal meltdowns where I would fall to the floor and just cry. I still have really bad days. I cry a lot. I shake. I'll get really bad headaches or really bad stomach aches. I will just be crying uncontrollably for hours. My eyes will barely even open. I cry so hard that I throw up. If I'm having a panic attack, I will not leave the house, I will not go to school, I will not see my friends, and I will just shut down. Because of my anxiety, I probably missed 40 plus days of school last year. Or I'd make myself sick so I could leave. I'm anxious about school shootings, I'm anxious about friends, I'm anxious about my future, I'm anxious about college. Social media is a huge source of anxiety for me. It makes me struggle with body image. I have anxiety attacks once a week, 3 times a week. It depends. I won't grow out of anxiety, but I can learn to live with it as long as I can take control of it before it takes control of me.
How do you feel about being here?
A little nervous, but I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad you are here because this is and can be really debilitating for you, right?
Yes. I mean, there will be days where I can't even get out of bed. I can't go to school. I've refused to go to school before. I isolate myself and I'm unable to really communicate to anyone. And I cry and I cry and I cry. And sometimes it'll get so bad that my eyes will just swell up so much that I can barely see.
And what is it that brings this on? Sometimes you'll be completely happy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My anxiety is a shapeshifter. So what will make me anxious today won't make me anxious tomorrow. There's many things that make me anxious right now, like the future, and not only my future, but it's also the future of the world because the state of the world right now is so anxiety provoking. I really struggle with school, the academic side of school. That's really difficult because I'm in my last 2 years of high school, so that determines so much for me and for where I go from here.
So what do you say to yourself that gets you out of these panic attacks, anxiety attacks? How does it end?
Well, there's many things that I like to do. The first thing I do is, I call it my 5-5 rule. I'll take a few seconds and I'll ask myself, I'll be like, is this gonna matter to me in 5 seconds? Yes, probably. 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 years, and so on. And that kind of helps me stay grounded. And I remind myself that this is just a moment and I will come out of it. Even though it is sometimes hard to remind myself that, because when you're in those kind of panic attack moments, it can feel like it's gonna last forever and it can feel like that this is the end of the world.
Yeah, but logic doesn't really matter, right?
Mm-hmm. Even if it's the smallest issue, I can take that and I can turn it into something so much bigger and so unrealistic too. I can take a conversation I had with a friend and I can analyze that and I can be like, wait, I said this wrong. What if they're mad at me? What if they don't talk to me anymore? What if they block me? I just take things and I turn them so bad.
Okay. Let's play that out for just a minute.
Okay.
What if that happened?
I mean,
What if they got mad at you? What if they blocked you?
I mean, I would be so upset. And, I've had situations like that.
Okay, but let's do that. But what if they blocked you and you got upset? So what if you got upset? Then what?
I mean, I would have to figure out a way to deal with it, which would be hard because I am an all-time people pleaser and I wouldn't like one of my friends,
Okay, but what if you couldn't figure out a way to please them? Okay, so what if you weren't everybody's best friend? Then what? My point is, you play what if, but you don't ever answer the question.
Yeah.
You say, what if they don't like me? Well, what if they don't? But answer the question. What if everybody doesn't like you?
I frankly don't know how to answer the question.
Well, let's figure it out. What if they don't like you?
Then, I'll be upset about it, but that's okay.
Is it?
Yeah, not everyone has to like me.
Okay, so, see, my point is monsters live in the dark.
Yeah.
And there's good news and bad news there. Mm-hmm. The bad news is you're bringing it on yourself. The good news is you're bringing it on yourself.
Yeah.
Which means the only person that you have to control to handle this is you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just you.
Yes.
Do you get that?
No, absolutely.
People don't respond to what happens in life. They respond to what they say to themselves about what happens in life. You don't respond to what occurs, you respond to your violation of expectations. And you control your expectations.
Yeah.
When you say you get in your head, that's just a little summary term that gets used a lot, but you have to really unpack that and say, I'm creating my own problem, which means I can fix my own problem.
Yeah.
You should be thrilled that this is your problem.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna add a young woman who says social media is just one of the many triggers that causes an anxiety attack almost every single day. We're gonna add her to the conversation after the break. We'll be right back. $36 trillion. That is the US debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today.
I'm going to grad school soon, so I'm really anxious about that.
I have mental breakdowns all the time.
Within the past 5-6 years, now I know that it's anxiety, but it was a struggle for school, jobs, my health issues, my stomach was constantly messed up.
Well, I actually don't really feel anxiety until it gets to a point where I have a lot of heartburn, and then I realize that I'm anxious, and then I have to do something to fix it.
I don't have my medication on me, but I do take medication, and it has helped me tremendously.
My next guest, Riley, says the anxiety and panic attacks she battles as a Gen Z young adult can be triggered by, really anything, from news about a mass shooting to just thinking about her future. Take a look.
When I get a panic attack, my whole body starts shaking. It feels like there's a brick sitting on my chest, like I can't breathe, and then I start crying just profusely. I've always had anxiety about money and not being able to make enough. I have a lot of social anxiety about flying because I'm terrified of dying, anxiety about driving because I've been in a few accidents. I'm always scared of being in a mall or a movie theater and a shooting happens. I'm always thinking about something bad happening. I use social media as my outlet.
Does anyone else feel really alone? You don't have a group of friends. You don't have a best friend. You have friends.
I'm talking about my anxiety with thousands of people because they're going through the same thing. I do read my comments. It sucks because a lot of these comments are what I already feel about myself, and so people agreeing or adding to that just makes me very anxious.
I don't know what's been wrong with me lately, but I have been struggling the last few weeks. Not wanting to eat, not sleeping, and then not being able to wake up.
I don't know that I'm doing a good job of coping with it right now. I need to put in more work to understand why I'm feeling the way I feel. I hope I'm not always this anxious or depressed because it's not enjoyable and it just ruins a lot of life.
Well, Riley, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You say your anxiety has actually ruined relationships.
Yes, and a lot of friends want you to open up about what's going on, and I don't like to be a burden to people. I'll be there for you, but I don't really allow people to be there for me, and it just puts kind of a wedge in between our friendships because I'm not willing to open up, and then if I do open up and they don't reciprocate it how I expect them to, it just causes a big strain. And I'd rather just kind of be by myself and worry about it by myself and just pretend to be someone I'm not with other people.
Now, you're a content creator,
Yes.
and so you're on the internet, and you say you get negative comments about your body, about the way you present every day,
Yes.
and you read them.
Yes.
Why do you read them?
Well, part of my job is responding to comments, and you can't, you can help yourself and not read them, but it's kind of hard to avoid.
Well, engagement is important, but you could filter those things. You could have somebody screen them for you. There's a lot of different things that you can do. You actually post videos online about your anxiety,
Yeah.
which you're very transparent about it, which I commend you for, but you get criticized about that.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people don't understand why I would record myself crying and post it online. But I use it as a way to cope with what I'm dealing with because I don't want to talk about it. And that's my way of sharing it. And in my mind, I don't think that anybody sees them. So it's not that big of a deal to me. Like, if I'm feeling sad, I'm going to record myself crying and post it. And then it ends up helping more people than it makes people angry.
What's the hardest thing for you to deal with?
I think it's the fact that I don't understand why I'm constantly anxious and depressed and let everything build up and can't just let it out or talk to a therapist. I would love to just be a happy-go-lucky person every single day, but that's just never who I've been. And I think that's what bothers me and angers me.
You say social media is a source of anxiety for you. And as strange as this sounds, social media is not a requirement for your existence. That made you anxious. It's not? No, it's really not. And the truth is that this is a source of pain and anxiety and giving your power away to some real unknowns. And actually, there's some real science that it is designed to addict, and the addiction is based on creating upset and anxiety and depression by design.
Yeah.
And you're falling victim to it. And you can stop that. And if it gave you freedom and you knew that and you could withdraw from the fear of missing out, I mean, is that something you can envision yourself doing?
I mean, I have spent time off of social media before, and I'll admit, I feel better, but it's just...
20 minutes?
No, I've spent a good maybe week or so off of it. And I felt better, but it's the fear of missing out. And, it's like, I don't want to be the only person in my friend group or my classes who doesn't know what's going on,
Okay. When we come back, I want to add a world-renowned physician and psychiatrist. We're going to find out what he believes are the top threats to your children. He's going to join us right after the break. Well, when it comes to mental health issues, many Gen Z young adults say instead of suffering in silence, they are posting their struggles online, especially when it comes to anxiety. My next guest, Dr. Daniel Amen, is a physician, psychiatrist, and one of the foremost experts on brain health, and is a brain imaging pioneer with the world's largest database of brain scans for psychiatry, totaling more than 250,000 SPECT scans on patients from 155 different countries. He's also a dear friend of mine. Please welcome Dr. Dan Amen. Now, Dr. Amen, you say you're horrified at the level of diagnoses this generation is receiving.
So according to the CDC, 57% of teenage girls report being persistently sad. Think of that. More than half, 32% have thought of killing themselves, 24% have planned to kill themselves, and 13% have tried. This is unlike anything before in human history, and it's horrifying. Now, bad things have been happening in the world since the world began, but now children have access to it at a moment's notice. So worrying about school shootings. Anytime there's a school shooting, immediately it's on the news, it's on social media. These devices, so phones, video games, social media, they're wearing out the pleasure centers in their brain, actually thrilling them to death. And when you get a notification, it puts a little dopamine on the pleasure center. But the more you do it, the stronger that becomes. It begins to wear these centers out, and you just feel flat. You feel uncomfortable, you feel sad, you feel anxious. And I always think of my patients in 4 big circles. What's the biology of this? What's the psychology of this? What's the social circle and the spiritual circle? And social media actually attacks all 4 of those circles.
Yeah, and let's take a look at this. You're talking about 4 different areas where the function occurs. The biological, which is brain and body. The social media impacts here. There's a tech addiction, and that's where you're saying that we're actually getting so overstimulated because there's immediate feedback on everything. This isn't a good thing.
No, because it's wearing out the centers in your brain that are meant to keep you happy and motivated.
Yeah. And this also includes like drugs and poor nutrition and all that. Then the social, the connections and the stress. This has to do with overprotective parents, loneliness, isolation, and social media, dating apps, that sort of thing. And we're much more socially conscious now than we were 10 years ago, right?
Absolutely. And then there are the ants, the automatic negative thoughts, and we're filled with them. And then if you turn on the news, the anchors are filled with them as well. So we're being modeled this undisciplined thinking.
Yeah, and then the spiritual. Lack of connection to a higher power, and you feel like life really has no meaning outside that moment, outside what's going on at the time.
50% of young people feel like their life has no meaning. That is horrifying, and that contributes to the anxiety and depression that they feel.
Okay, when you're talking about wearing ourselves out, the pleasure centers, you're actually talking about the brain structures, right?
Physically.
Yeah.
It's an area called the nucleus accumbens, and it responds to dopamine. But if you push on it too much, too hard, it begins to wear it out, and then you need more and more excitement to feel anything at all, which sets you up for an addiction.
Yeah, okay. So I want everybody to think about these 4 circles as we move forward, because there are a lot of ways to divide up where you function. Where do you think your biggest area is that would be a problem for you? Which of the 4 would be your number 1 friction?
It would probably be the social connections and stresses.
And how about you?
I would say psychological.
Okay, social and psychological. All right. Next, Sevi's mother is here, and she has dedicated her life to helping her daughter and others, actually, struggling with anxiety. We're going to find out why she believes parents can either be part of the problem or part of the solution to help an anxious generation. We'll add her after the break.
When I was younger, I had really bad separation anxiety from my mom. It has always been the fear of the unknown for me. I didn't know when my mom was coming home. She always came home. It was just kind of the fear of what could happen. I couldn't even go to sleepovers. I would wake up in the middle of the night and have my friends' parents call my mom at like 2 o'clock in the morning so I could go home.
When it comes to a child suffering with anxiety or any mental health problem for that matter, being a parent can feel like you are on an island and alone with no rescue in sight. Now, Sevi's mother, Laura, says she knows the feeling all too well because it's how she felt while desperately trying to help her own daughter.
When Sevi was a baby, I started to notice certain behaviors that became alarming to me. When she was a toddler, the smallest things would set her off. Her reactions were very grand and very dramatic. She was hurting so much, but I didn't understand why. I would, watch her just fall apart, fall to the ground, crumble, go into this like almost fetal position. And it was very, very hard for me. When Sevi was entering her teenage years, she spoke the words, "I can't do this anymore. I don't know if I want to live." And that's a really scary thing for parents to hear. I thought that I was failing as a parent. I was letting my child down until I took her to somebody that said, "You know your child has anxiety, right?" It was like this bell went off. We just weren't talking about it. And once I had opened that door to have those conversations, it was a difference maker for all of us. There's always been a stigma around anxiety and mental health. Today, that stigma is less and less because Gen Z, they want to talk about it. The more we can normalize it, the quicker we can get to some resolutions on it. Anxiety will always be a part of Sevi's life, but if she can help others feel seen and heard and not alone, and that's really what it's all about.
You've made it a real focus in your life to help not only your daughter, but others. If you were going to talk about the 2 or 3 things that you've really learned, what would they be?
I'm so grateful that you're shining a light on this subject. It's so important that we talk about it. What I learned was that Sevi and I needed a common language to talk about this. Because when we talk about mental health, it means something different to everybody, right? So I wanted to have a common language that worked for us. The other thing that I learned is that I had to learn to acknowledge that what Sevi was feeling was very real for her, even if I didn't understand it. Those feelings were authentic for her. And I think as a parent, so often we try to process through our more mature brains, and they're just not there yet. And so that was a big lesson for me, was to allow Sevi to feel what she was feeling and not try to fix everything.
Yeah. First off, I want to comment on the documentary that you made, Anxious Nation. I've seen this, and I have to tell you, I think this is an absolute triumph. I think it is absolutely brilliant, and I'll tell you why. It has a message that says we've got to meet these kids where they are and not ask them to meet us where we are in our understanding. It's a game changer, and I think it is something that every parent that's dealing with this should watch. If we want this generation to survive in a competitive world, we have to start preparing them. It isn't just, oh, get over it. We have to give you coping skills, tools to actually do this with. And look, this is just beginning the conversation. We're not going to solve an epidemic in an hour, but I wanted to start this conversation, and we'll continue the conversation. And again, great job on the documentary.
Thank you so much.
Well done. I want to thank all of my guests tonight, and a special thanks to Dr. Daniel Amen. And thanks to you at home for finding us here at Dr. Phil's Merit TV. And you can pick up my new book, We've Got Issues, How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity, everywhere books are sold. Thank you so much.